Today's topic is a bit more esoteric. We're going to discuss the psychology of sustainable dieting. Now, to be clear, we're going to leave orthorexia out of this. This is no moral or value judgment making here. Simply a discussion on how we can reframe our thoughts so we can turn those momentary lapses of willpower into affirmations of resolve and commitment to the process. Before moving on, disclaimer, I am not a licensed psychologist, therapist, researcher in this regard, etc., etc. If you have a physical or mental condition that significantly impacts your ability to diet successfully, then I recommend you seek the appropriate professional assistance with those issues. Having said that, the first thing I want to discuss is that in order to diet sustainably successfully, I want to introduce you to the concept of restriction as a form of freedom. Now, how does that make sense? The freedom is from the structure. One of the problems that we have in modern society in the age of information is the problem of accessibility. We have too many choices. When you impose a structure to certain behaviors or have a structure imposed on you, like for instance in the military, on the one hand it's restrictive, it eliminates the choices available to you, but on the other hand it's liberating because now instead of distributing your mental energy, instead of accruing a ton of psychological fatigue from the burden of having to make so many choices, you now have this massive reserve of energy that you can put towards the few choices in your life that matter. In the military, this was laid out in the form of task conditions and standards. See the above slide referencing a pistol qualification range. Your task is the thing that you're doing. The conditions are the environment in which you're doing it, and the standards define your pass or fail criteria. And I use this example because we refer to the process of habit forming, of practicing a skill, as trigger time for a reason. Setting out to do a thing like lose weight, get stronger, improve a health marker is no different than going to a qualification range. And the behavioral psychology in order to become successful at that task is also no different. To become proficient in any weapon system, there is a structure to the training that requires discipline with respect to others in terms of muzzle and trigger discipline, but also discipline within yourself in terms of the fundamentals of marksmanship. Trigger squeeze, breath control, sight picture, and steady position. And then, after so many times at the range, so much trigger time, the process of practicing those disciplines within that structure affords you the freedoms, in the case of shooting, the ability to engage targets in a real-world high-stress scenario. In the case of dieting, the ability to navigate social events, high-stress days, family gatherings, or anything else that might throw you off the wagon. So you're thinking to yourself, okay, great, but we aren't soldiers. We aren't going to be forced to make the right decisions, so how do we make those decisions on our own? This is where it's important, folks, to recognize that intention is not enough. Your actions have to reflect your intentions. In other words, have some integrity with your intentions, with yourself. And it's difficult, but begin to stop giving yourself lip service and only vocalize the intentions that have actions immediately following them. And I know this is difficult to do when you've had quite a few failures or you just don't even know where to start. But this is part of the reframing process, folks. What I urge you to do is focus on what you can do, not what you can't. Don't say, I can't stop eating ice cream. Say, I can go for a 10-minute walk after I eat that ice cream to reduce its impact on my blood glucose. Say I can get in at least 9,000 steps every day. Think about it like this. If X, then Y, Y is the positive response to your limitation. You can flip that another way too, folks. Let's say, for instance, I'll give you a personal example. So I've said in previous videos, partially due to, genetics, and partially due to just, a mix of a lot of conditioning and some lifting, I can put away barbecue sauce like all day. I can drink the stuff and my blood glucose like doesn't budge. But if I have like 2 slices of pizza, I'm like 12 pounds of bloat the next morning. So for me, pizza is just a thing I don't really eat anymore. Some people take that as like that's no way to live. It might as well be a death sentence. I reframe this condition, if you want to call it that, as not a I can't eat pizza, because of course I can. And I'm going to do a follow-up video on this, hopefully today, but sometime in the next couple days for sure, on the effects of sodium, processed food, water retention, that kind of stuff. But I certainly can eat the pizza, I haven't in the past couple years. That's crazy, right? Like, it's been over 3 years, I think, since I've had pizza. But anyways, I can for sure. And at this point, it had probably just come out in the wash after a day or two, and I probably wouldn't even notice it. But instead of saying I can't do a thing, I reframe that in my mind as I don't do a thing. I hear it all the time. I don't know how you do it, man. I can't get up and train before work. I think to myself, I don't not get up early and train before work. People might question how you're eating at a social gathering because you might decide to prepare your own food, or you might decide to only eat certain things, like maybe you're avoiding the fried foods or, whatever the case may be. And you'll hear people say something like, oh, you can't eat that? My response in those situations is, I can, I just choose not to. I don't eat that. And again, this is intrinsically tied to my personal ethos and what I see as my identity. I might be getting on in my years chronologically, but fundamentally, my sport as an athlete is I'm a warfighter. I'm a weapon, and I don't put dirt in my weapon. I keep it clean so that it functions properly when I need it to. That is my personal ethos, but whatever it is that you identify with that makes you say I don't instead of I can't, that identity, that personal ethos is going to be the fundamental driver of how you reframe your decisions during those critical moments when you can zig instead of zag. To be clear, allow yourself to fall off the wagon or decide to stay on it. And I have a lot more to say on this, folks, especially when it comes to training itself, but specific to diet, however you make it work, whether it's with hormones, habits, or otherwise, the magic all happens upstairs in your dome piece. That's why I chose this image for the thumbnail. Whether it's the smell of food, hormones from your gut, your fat cells, your pancreas, whatever the case may be, all those signals got to go up to that supercomputer sitting on top of your neck so that you can interpret all that information and with that information determine an appropriate course of action. This part right here, folks, is the hardest obstacle to navigate. But once you do, you're most of the way there. All you got to do after that is just stay in the fight. Thanks for watching.